The first article is related to plastic pollution, as a research paper in the journal Science has observed that by 2050 we might be dealing with about 12,000 million tons of plastic waste accumulated in the landfills and natural environment. That will be equivalent to about 2000 times the mass of the Pyramid of Giza. So we will discuss the challenges associated with the plastic waste management, the global steps to tackle the plastic pollution, the steps taken by India to tackle the menace of plastic pollution, and a few suggestions in this regard. This is important in GS3 under the topic conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. First, let's start with some facts. The facts related to plastic pollution. Globally, about 9 to 14 million tons of plastic waste generated ends up in the oceans, and the rivers act as the conduits. Through the rivers, the plastic finally ends up in the oceans, and agriculture contributes about 12.5 million tons of plastic waste globally, and the packaging itself accounts for more than one third of the plastic waste generation, accounts for about 36% of the plastic waste generated. When we look at the data in India, more than 25,000 tons of plastic waste is generated in India each day, and about 40% of the plastic waste remains uncollected. Similarly, the Envis data has pointed out that about 22,000 tons of solid waste is generated in the Indian Himalayan region every day. Now, the plastic can be categorized depending upon the size. If the plastic size is more than 25 mm, we call it macroplastics. Less than 25 mm but more than 5 mm plastic is known as mesoplastics. And then there is the microplastics, which is less than 5 mm in size but more than 1 micrometer. And the nanoplastics is the plastic with size of less than 1 micrometer. The microplastic is of particular concern because there is primary microplastic also and the secondary microplastic also. The primary microplastic is the one which enters the waste chain in the form of microplastic itself. For example, in the form of nurdles, pellets, beads, industrial raw material, abrasives, synthetic textiles, etc. Whereas the secondary microplastic is the microplastic which enters into the waste chain after getting weathered or fragmented. Initially it was not microplastic, it was bigger in size, but due to weathering or fragmentation, for example, the waste from the fiber, foam, fragments, large plastic products, for example, the degradation, gradual degradation of fishing gear, synthetic textiles, ship generated litter, etc. contribute to the microplastic generation. Now, why are we so concerned about the plastic waste generation? Because it has an adverse impact on both the health of the humans as well as the health of the environment. When we consider the health impact upon the humans, we are inhaling plastic. We are inhaling microplastic, for example, and as per some studies, an adult every year in India is inhaling more than 150,000 particles of microplastics. And the nanoparticles, they penetrate the skin itself. Now the larger particles, they are restricted through the nose itself, but the smaller particles, they end up into the lungs, penetrating even the kidneys also, and the microplastics, they accumulate in the liver and kidney as well. Now, the specific health risk because of the microplastics can be observed in terms of the impact on the brain, which causes nervous system impairment, functional impairment. When it enters the lungs, it causes an inflammatory response from the body, causing functional impairment of the lungs also. In terms of its impact on the liver, the microplastics can cause hepatic fibrosis and metabolic disorders. And in the kidney also, it causes significant impairment of the renal function. It causes ecological imbalance in the gut, therefore causing the metabolic disorders of the intestinal flora. In the genital system also, it causes the concerns regarding the reproductive capacity, impairing the reproductive capacity as well. Therefore, we need to deal with the microplastics specifically. Now, what are the challenges in dealing with the plastic waste generation? The first challenge is that the industrial need drives the usage of plastic. For example, the plastic is used for packaging, for textiles, for yarns, etc. And there is also no global treaty to deal with the plastic pollution. There were negotiations recently for signing a global plastic treaty, but talks have not taken off. And the alternatives to plastic, they have been costly. For example, biodegradable plastic. The biodegradable plastic is more costly than the conventional plastic, and the recycling also has been inefficient, as about 9% of the plastic is recycled in India, whereas about 79% is simply discarded, which ends up in the landfills and contributes to the plastic waste. And the microplastics, they are even more dangerous, because there are primary sources also and the secondary sources also, because of the weathering and fragmentation of the larger plastic particles. And there is the contribution from the marine plastic pollution as well. We can observe the adverse impact of the plastic pollution by looking at the average times that is taken for the decomposition of the plastic. For example, the grocery bags, they themselves take 1 to 20 years for degradation. Even the disposable diapers, the plastic bottles that we frequently use and throw them away, they take more than 400 years to be decomposed and degraded. The plastic beverage holder similarly taking 400 years. Tin cans, even foamed plastic cups, they even take 50 years to be completely degraded in the environment. Now, what are the steps that the world has taken for the plastic waste pollution? The UNDP India has the plastic waste management program that was run from 2018 to 2024, and there was a ban on the single-use plastics also. India has enforced the ban on the single-use plastic, and we came up with the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules 2022, which even enforced the extended producer responsibility, that the producer of the plastic, they also have the responsibility to collect the waste also. And the India Plastic Pact aimed that by 2030 we will be phasing out completely the single use plastics. The Project Replan aims to ensure that we are mixing plastic with the cotton fibers so that the biodegradation can be improved. And through the Go Little Partnerships project, the marine plastic pollution is tackled. Now, when we look at the steps specifically taken by the government in India, earlier the plastic pollution was also tackled through the Environmental Protection Act 1986. Specifically for plastic, we came up with the Plastic Manufacture, Sale and Usage Rules 1999. Through the rules of 1999, the minimum thickness of the carry bags was prescribed, that the carry bags, plastic carry bags, polythenes, they should have a minimum thickness of at least 20 micrometer. Why? Because if the thickness is lesser, the cost of production will also be lesser. To increase the cost of production, therefore, to disincentivize the usage of the cheap plastic carry bags, the minimum thickness was prescribed. And subsequently, there were the amendment rules. For example, in 2011, the minimum thickness of the plastic carry bags was increased further to 40 micrometer to again increase the cost of production of the plastic carry bags. There was the introduction of the extended producer responsibility. The annual report was to be submitted by the plastic manufacturers regarding the plastic waste, and the explicit pricing of the carry bags was also introduced, that the carry bags, they should not be given away for free by the people selling the commodities, rather they should be priced. And further amendments were taken up in 2016 when the minimum thickness of carry bags was further increased to 50 micrometer, and in 2021 it was further increased to 75 micrometer, and 2022 it was increased to 120 micrometer, and in 2021 we notified the single use plastic ban as well in India. Now, the recent Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules 2024 were enforced. The rules of 2024 are one of the most comprehensive rules till now, as the definitions have been expanded. The manufacturer of plastics, they are now including the manufacturers of the biodegradable plastic also, plus compostable plastics also. The responsibilities of the local bodies have also been defined under the amendment rules of 2024, that they will be enforcing these rules, plus they will be prohibiting, they will be ensuring that the prohibited plastic, they are not in usage. For example, the carry bags having the thickness less than prescribed. The selling of the plastic raw materials will only be done to the registered manufacturers, the registered producers of the plastic. Additionally, the manufacturers of plastics and also the importers of plastic, they have the registration and reporting obligations, that they will be mandatorily reporting to the state pollution control boards, plus they will be submitting the annual reports to the state pollution control boards regarding the amount of plastic, the quantity of plastic that they have manufactured or they have imported. The introduction of a new biodegradable plastic category has been done by the government, and the thickness requirement exemption has been given for the compostable and biodegradable carry bags. That is, for the biodegradable and the compostable carry bags, the minimum thickness requirement has been removed, so that there is encouraging of the usage of the biodegradable plastic bags despite their higher cost. Similarly, the pre-consumer waste processing obligations have been put, that is upon the producers, the extended producer responsibility and the minimum recycling targets have been given to them. The micro and small enterprises have been exempted from the extended producer responsibilities, the obligations under the EPR for the rules 2024 of the plastic waste management. Additionally, there are calls for a global plastic treaty, which India is specifically emphasizing, because the developing nations, for example India, they will need funds from the developed countries to ensure that they are able to phase out the plastic usage and they are able to shift to the biodegradable alternatives, for example jute carry bags, etc., because they are costlier as compared to the conventional plastics. And there should be technology transfer also. If the developed countries are able to come up with the biodegradable alternatives which are cost effective as well through research, then such technology should be transferred to the developing countries, as the plastic waste generation, it is having a global impact. And there should be the establishment of a dedicated multilateral fund, the fund which should give grants to the developing countries to ensure that there is phasing out of the single use plastic and the conventional plastic. Additionally, India is against an outright restriction, outright prohibition on the polymer production. As India is in a growth phase, India is in a developing phase, therefore we will need the plastics for the logistics, packaging, etc. And rather we are in favor of pragmatic phase outs, which should be assisted with financial assistance as well as technological assistance from the developed countries. And we are also in the favor of a single use plastic ban as well. Now, what are the suggestions that we can give for tackling the plastic pollution? First, we need to focus upon the phasing out of the single-use plastics, because the single-use plastic is one of the major contributors towards the plastic waste generation. For that, we can learn from the models of various countries. For example, Rwanda. Rwanda phased out the single-use plastics. Similarly, we need to promote the circular economy, promoting the recycling, reusage, etc. For example, Austria. And we also need to scale the alternatives, for example usage of jute carry bags or the biodegradable plastics. And when there is economy of scale employed in the alternative options, then their cost will also start coming down. Similarly, we need to sign a global treaty for tackling the plastic pollution. When you are giving suggestions, you can write in the form of a diagram also in the answer. For example, first we need to go for a proper solid waste management in general, which includes the collection and segregation at the source itself and its disposal. Then we need to go for plastic waste collection mechanism, incentivize the plastic waste collection, for example through a deposit refund system. For example, when you buy something which is having a plastic packaging, you take a small deposit also, which will be refunded if you submit that plastic waste. Additionally, the responsibility can be with the manufacturers, the extended producer responsibility, which is in the plastic waste management rules also in India. We can go for alternative designs for the packaging, for example eco-friendly packaging or biodegradable alternatives. The social behavior also needs to be targeted for ensuring that the circular economy is promoted. The government can also play its role, for example by going for a complete ban on the production itself for the single-use plastic, and the legislation can also be taken up for levying the penalties in case there are any alternatives not explored. Then the scientific policy can also focus upon the alternatives, for example the research and development for the remediation techniques as well. In the conclusion, we can quote Gandhiji that there is enough for everyone's need on earth but not enough for anyone's greed. Therefore, we need to go for sustainable alternatives. It is also our fundamental duty under the Constitution, under Article 51A Clause G, that it is the duty to protect and improve the natural environment, including forest, environment, lakes, wildlife, etc. There is a mains practice question also. What are the challenges associated with plastic waste management in India? Discuss the steps taken by the government to address the plastic pollution and suggest further measures to ensure sustainable plastic management. Please try to write it.